Well, good morning, everybody. One of the things which struck me from something Bill just said about last week being Pilot Assistance Week, he's mostly right, but when you really think about it, every week is Pilot Assistance Week, and every day is Pilot Assistance Day. And I'm not just talking about SERP and aeromedical and HIMSS and pro stands. I'm talking about all the services that we give to our pilots. And back to Captain Duffy's days, even though we leverage different technologies, we use different practices, and we kind of model ourselves after what we think is going to be most effective. The one thing that never changes is the talent pool, is just the terribly experienced and motivated and incredibly energetic volunteers. So that's been the continuous thread that kind of runs right through this great set of gentlemen back there. So I just an opening thought. So, part of that leveraging of technology and procedures and everything, I mean, it shows up in this iPhone app right now for somebody who wants to run from one gate to another to get on the next jump seat, to figure out where the most convenient known crew member port is going to be for them to get through the alternate screening points. So we're constantly evolving and we're constantly on the move. And that's really the definition of the Air Safety Organization. This group here, fortunately, helped us put the Air Safety Organization, the ASO, into effect about 2 years ago. And I'm happy to open by saying that we have never been stronger. There's not a week that doesn't come by where we're not recruiting and identifying another one of those members of our talent pool to once again render the best, the highest level pilot assistance that we possibly can. And I really have this group here to thank for it. I know all of you are probably getting harangued by me a little bit, getting the letters in the mail asking for your approval to vet and identify and support your volunteers, and let me start by thanking you for that. So when faced with a problem, there are a couple ways to address it. We can simply stick our head in the sand and ignore it. We can and hope it goes away, or we can analyze the problem, come up with a strategy, and come up with a plan of action. So first we engage. We listen to our members. We take the lie of the land. We read the newspapers. We listen to what industry is telling us. We strategize. Rather than just put a blindfold over our head and throw darts at a dartboard, we think about what's the best strategy to get this higher level of pilot assistance strategic goals on behalf of our members. And then finally we execute. We come up with a plan of action, and we do our very best job possible towards moving the ball forward strategically and tactically on behalf of our members. And of course, the other part of this process, it's an iterative one. We have to constantly be somewhat introspective, reevaluating how well we did, adjusting, and then starting all over again. So it's this iterative process that's made us successful over the past 2 years, and I think it's this kind of process that's going to keep us successful as we go down the road. I'm going to get into a bunch of details of what we've been doing to execute on our strategic plan in Delegate 4. I'm going to do much more of a deep dive, but I'm just going to go into some high-level items that I know this group would be interested in. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the FAA Reauthorization Bill of 2010, otherwise known as the First Officer Qualification Rule. So in 2010, Congress passed the Reauthorization Act, Bill of 2010, and once again, this is the world of legislative mandates that get handed to us with prescribed timelines, but sometimes it's difficult to meet the technical challenges, to make sure the adequate resources are in place, to make sure we meet and assist on our members' behalf with those standards. So this August, that rule will kick into effect that requires all pilots operating in a Part 121 capacity in the United States to have an air transport pilot rating, unlike the world as it is right now, which is just required for the pilot in command. We anticipated that this would create problems for our members with some of the language, and so we engaged the MECs throughout the process when we had a little bit more clear picture of what this regulation was going to entail for our members, especially the folks who were flying for the regional and fee-for-departure carriers, and a bunch of you are in here, and we spent some time auditing our members and looking for the folks that would be impacted. We're confident that we have minimized the number of pilots who will be adversely affected by this ruling, which will require an ATP standard come this August. And we also think that if nothing else was to happen right now come August, congressionally mandated requirement would be that everybody would have to have 1,500 hours in an ATP rating. But we do believe that we're going to see a new category, something called a restricted ATP license, which would reduce the threshold age to 21 and would also create credit hourly equivalence, which would also allow for folks to maintain this restricted category of ATP and meet the legislative standard. The other hidden gotcha with this rule was also that in addition to the ATP, there's obviously an associated medical standard associated with that. And so the big change, which will affect everybody here, is that for those members who have been maintaining a second-class medical certificate or who have been flying in the right seat and allowing their first class to lapse into a second, the standard right now, if nothing else was to happen, is that they will be required to meet a first-class medical standard. And so in this case, what we've been doing is we've taken the lead and recruited members from around industry, and we are in the process of formally filing a petition to the FAA that will help first officers to continue to fly with a second-class medical certificate just as they do right now. So again, we engaged with the stakeholders, we created a strategy, and we're basically executing on that plan right now, so more to come there. But our whole world just doesn't reside within the world of the FAA, although it might seem like that sometimes. We have a pretty broad swath of areas that we touch on behalf of our members. And a great example is known crew member, which is obviously more towards the TSA and Department of Homeland Security side of the house. And so we're continuing to try to execute on our Board of Directors initiative to make more prevalent alternate screening points, make it easier and safer for our members to go to work. And I think we're doing a very good job of it right now. We have 29 airports open, I think roughly about 70 portals within those airports. Right now we have members that we're identifying to help us perform site surveys at Reagan and also Fort Lauderdale. And ALPA and A4A, Airlines for America, are working with TSA, and we're hoping that we're going to see a new wave of announcements of new airports to be opened sometime soon. Additionally, we've addressed safety and security issues, including secondary barriers, which is obviously something which is a high interest item right now. And we have a white paper that we just updated on that. And, in light of the issues with the Dreamliner, the whole topic of lithium batteries has come to the forefront. Two different aspects to that. One is the system design within the 787 itself, but the bigger issue that we've been really trying to execute on is advocating for the safe transport, especially the bulk transport of lithium batteries. And one more thing that I'll point out, and we're going to get into in a delegate 4, is we're also trying to harmonize the current regulation, which requires one of our crew members to don an oxygen mask at or above 25,000 feet. The international standard is 41,000, and again, we've identified the problem. We're trying to execute with another filing of hopefully for a regulatory change, a rulemaking change at the FAA. One of the things that I should point out right now is that the FFDO program is an extremely efficient and an extremely effective program, and it continues to have funding challenges because every year the President's budget comes out, and unfortunately it goes through the Office of Management budget process. And more often than not, the recommendation comes forth that they basically cut the funding level for the FFDO program, which right now stands at only $25 million, which in this town is pretty much a rounding error. And so as I speak right now, as a matter of fact, at this very second, we have members walking the halls of Congress. Captain Fred Eisler is literally right now knocking on doors and trying to execute on the game plan that worked very, very well last year. And that was once the budget announcement came out, we went right to folks that were sympathetic to the FFDO program, and also folks who were involved in not only the authorization but the appropriations process to restore the funding to the program. It worked well last year. We're confident it's going to work equally well this year, and it's our hope actually that we're going to drive up the funding level for, like I said, for this incredibly efficient and effective program defending our aircraft. How many of you turned on the news this morning and saw an X-47 take off of an aircraft carrier? Not many. Okay, well, I was sipping my coffee this morning and looking at the news, And boy, what an appropriate thing to look to see right before I walked over here for this board of directors meeting. You know, of all the issues that we're involved with, few are more controversial right now or complex than those related to unmanned aircraft systems, or what I like to think there should be more accurately called remotely piloted aircraft, because there's still a pilot flying that aircraft. They just don't happen to be sitting up in the flight deck. So what is our mandate? What is our strategic guidance? It's ensuring that pilots manning these aircraft and the standards are every bit as safe as the standards that exist right now. So a world inclusive of unmanned aircraft systems will be every bit as safe as a world exclusive of them right now. There has been some standard-setting activity which has been reconstituted primarily with sense and avoid technologies and also lost link. And I'm happy to say I just talked about recruiting new members. We have two folks that are coming in right now to the Air Safety Organization and have line operational experience flying these things. They're going to be working, helping to set standards along with some very talented staff members and making sure that our interests are represented. And incidentally, that X-47 just took off the aircraft carrier a couple hundred miles east of here, just off of Maryland, and it landed at Pax River, right in our own backyard. As you have possibly read in some of the fast reads that we put out, another very interesting item is that ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, is working on a change to what we call SARPS, Standards and Recommended Practices, which form the body of the annexes. And they're addressing something called the over-under rule, which would cap the upper limit for international operations for first officers at 65. Currently, it's only a recommendation under international operations, although the captains are capped at 65. And the other thing is that it would eliminate the over-under rule, which would require somebody under 60 for international ops to be in the flight deck for if somebody is over 60 in addition. Currently, per U.S. law, obviously, pilots must retire at age 65 for commercial operations. But there's also an additional aspect of U.S. law which would have us conforming with ICAO. So what we believe, and again, we're going to brief in Delegate 4, is that the proposed change is a positive one because it'll eliminate a lot of complexity. It'll also eliminate the ambiguity of what the upper cap is for international operations, and it'll help to harmonize with U.S. law. And again, we're engaged, we're evaluating, we're going to brief in Delegate 4, and we're going to execute and make sure that our interests are represented. A little bit of a grab bag of courses, and just let me, without going into each of the items on this slide here, you know, I've been talking about the iterative process, adapting, evolving, and I think if you look at, let me zoom in on one thing, the risk management course. Chuck Hoagman is the captain from United Airlines. He's also the head of our national safety structure, and he's involved in one of the most important groups you've never heard of. It's called the SIAS, the Aviation Safety Information Analysis and Sharing Group, and they aggregate safety information from about 100 different sources throughout the U.S., and Canada also participates, and they do risk assessments, and they make risk-based cases and create focus areas so we can continue to make our safety system very, very safe. And most importantly, Chuck is there to make sure that as we provide this data, that our anonymity is guaranteed and we don't get subject to disciplinary proceedings because we're driving the safety standard higher. The risk management course is a reflection of that. We didn't have that before, but because all these data gathering systems are so important, we actually evolved some of the course structure. And so we'll continue to roll these courses. We'll continue to evaluate them. We'll continue to adapt them to make sure that they're meeting our members' needs of pilot assistance. And speaking of the iterative process, I seem to have said that word about 10 times today. I'll get it right eventually. We just had, as Bill just said, we just had a pilot assistance week. And I got to tell you that of all the events that we've put on, this, bar none, and if you were to talk to anybody, I think they would validate that, is probably one of the top two events, safety-related events that I've seen since I've had the privilege of being associated with ALPA. After the Air Safety Forum last year, which incorporated safety, security, and pilot assistance, the sense was that the PA folks were kind of getting lost in the white noise a little bit because of the heavy safety and security focus. They made a pitch to Captain Moak here, and he supported Jared McDermott, our PA chair, And we created a separate but equal kind of event, otherwise known as the Pilot Assistance Forum. We had 230 people there at the event in this very room. We had the FAA Surgeon General. We had high-level industry reps. We had amazing discussion topics. And we also had a tremendously successful banquet dinner. And we recognized our best and our brightest. Captain John Coney from FedEx was recognized, as well as Captain Murray Monroe from Jazz, for the amazing work that they do in terms of supporting our pilots. Again, pilot assistance. So in the next few months, we're not going to rest on our laurels. As much as a great event that was, we're going to keep at it. And we have a full calendar of events through the rest of the year. I'm going to be trekking up to Ottawa to attend the Remote Operations Symposium, a one-day focused event on making sure that we raise the bar of safety, not just here for members working out of major international airports, but also are flying north of 70 on gravel runways, flying circling approaches at night to NDBs. We're going to be making a very concerted effort to make sure that we make the safety case to get the government to build RMP approaches, to take care of the facilities, and to also create EMAS systems, energy absorbing systems, in the runway safety areas in the off chance that we might have a runway excursion, otherwise known as an overrun. We have had a very good relationship with our air traffic controllers. We worked very hard through the whole sequestration issue to support them. And we're going to be having a focused event oriented around NextGen, which is basically the leveraging of technologies, procedures, and policies to drive up the efficiency and maintain the safety case for our air traffic systems in the United States and Canada. And then finally, the other event that I hope you're all going to be able to attend is the Air Safety Forum, July 15th to the 18th at the same place. So we had it last year up at the Washington Hilton, just off Connecticut Avenue. And it's just an absolute incredible event, and it's a good opportunity to rub elbows and demonstrate that you do support the members who are supporting all of us. In closing, the work of the ASO has never been more important. Our industry is always changing, and so we must change as well to conform to the varying landscape. And the threats are always there, and they're always changing, from the multi-changing face of hostile acts of terror towards our passengers and our crews, to some of the nuances of our favorite word over the last couple of months, sequestration, and how we're going to wade our way through all those challenges, the budgeting challenges, which impact our regulators, impact our facilities, and of course impact our pilots. And I'd just like to close by saying that none of this is ever possible. Again, I already thanked you for supporting the members who support us, and I would also be remiss if I didn't thank all the just amazingly talented and experienced engineering and air safety staff, communications, R&I, everybody who make these kind of things possible. Thanks to Jen Lofquist you didn't know I was going to mention your name, for helping put this presentation together. I just think this is emblematic of what makes ALPA so great. Thank you.